What's up people? I might not have the best technique in disc golf, but I know how to play smart, and that's how I get by. So today I will teach you 12 tricks to keep you from making big mistakes and making the right decisions on the course. I promise you that these tips will save you at least 3 strokes every single round you play. So in today's video I will do a lot of talking, and if you don't enjoy that, I recommend checking out this video instead. Alright, tip number 1, straight off here at hole 1. The gap at the end on this one is pretty tight, and it's really hard to actually park the hole. So my first tip is to practice your putts enough that you don't have to park a hole, because this hole becomes so much easier if you don't try to park it. If you just try to get it into the last gap without pushing it all the way to the basket, it's so much easier. And if you can make that circle's edge putt, you still get the birdie. So to try to park the hole, I would go with the inside gap here, go with a backhand, try to turn it over and put it really close. But because that gap is so much tighter, I'm going with the outside gap with a forehand. Just throw it straight and fade around the big trees, land somewhere around circle's edge. Going with the DD3. And come back. That way, I'm always gonna have a putt for the birdie, so it's a smarter play. Alright, so it's a bit further than C1 edge, but it's still a chance for the birdie. First putt of the day. Let's take another one. Close, but there's no chance I'm taking a bogey if I'm throwing it this way. Which brings us to tip number 2. That is to play to your percentages, which basically means this way, where I threw the wide forehand and came in at the end. That basically brings me to like a 33% birdie rate and a 67% par rate. So there's nothing that could go wrong if I throw it out here. But if I go for the birdie play, I'm probably gonna have a higher percentage of getting the birdie, but that also brings the percentage of getting a bogey way up. So from like 0%, if I would have thrown it in the inside gap and gone for the birdie, then I probably would have had a 25% chance of getting the bogey instead. But maybe the birdie percent went up to 40%. But that's not worth it, because if you bring the bogey into play, it's not worth getting that higher percent chance on the birdie. So that's tip number 2. So easy par. And by the way, if you guys want to support me, look at these awesome t-shirts. Check out pag.se. Get my merch, all of these options, this cap as well. Very good, thank you. Hole 2, 77 meters. You can see the flag on top of the basket over there. Kind of a tight gap the entire way, slightly turning left. And this one is pretty straightforward, but the first tip that I gave you, you can use here as well. You don't have to park it if you know you'll make the putt. So just hit the initial gap and get it down there, and you'll have a look for the birdie. Going with the mind bender. Pretty bad shot, but it's still a putt. Like I said, I hit the gap. Alright, apparently it was a really bad shot, because I'm really short and I'm behind some bushes, but I'll give it a floaty bid. Try to keep it close. Fade it out a bit early, but it should be a easy par. Another easy par. Pretty bad start, but keep with me. Hole 3, 151 meter par 4. Really tight gap the entire way. And tip number 3 here, when you have a really straight fairway, don't throw a straight disc. Understable discs are your friend. Because if you throw a straight disc flat, it's gonna go straight, but then it's gonna hyzer out. But if you flip it up to flat, it's gonna go straight so much longer. So right here, I'm going with a Hades. I'm gonna throw it on a pretty steep hyzer, flip it up to flat, and just follow the fairway as far as I can. Unfortunately, I early released it a little bit. Let's do it with a fairway driver instead. This is a forged function, really unstable, but same principle. You see how straight that is? That makes the gap so much easier to hit. Scramble Town Deluxe. Jävlar, fastnade i handen. This is where the second tee shot landed. And it's the same thing here. You don't have to park it. Just put it in the biggest, most open place and make your putt. Alright, long bid here for a really lucky scramble birdie. Stayed close though. Easy tap in par. But the other one, pretty routine birdie. Hole 4, 87 meters straight ahead, a little bit downhill. Basket on a pretty scary position. Side tip, get yourself a tailor. Makes your game easier. That's parked. Get yourself a tailor. That's tip 3.5. Easy birdie. Alright, hole 5, 164 meter par 4, kind of a dog leg right, and then it comes back left at the end. And tip number 4 right here on hole 5, the first shot you only have to throw 80 meters, and people are gonna tell you that, oh, it's only 80 meters, just throw a putter. Throw whatever you want. Whatever works best for you, just throw it out there. If you want to throw a distance driver, go for it. I'm gonna throw a distance driver here, because that makes it so much easier. If I just hit the gap with this Halo Destroyer, I know it's gonna hook at the end and just go into the gap. But if I throw a putter or something forehand, I'm gonna have to be touchy and get the line right. It's so much harder. Perfect shot. Throw what you want. Don't listen to people, but listen to me, because I'm no people. All right, same thing here for the approach. I only have like 75 meters left to the basket, and people will tell you just throw an overstable putter. But if it's easier for you to hit the gap and be sure to come back at the end with a fairway driver, just throw a fairway driver or even a distance, whatever works best for you. That hit some root and just completely stopped, but I think I'm still inside C1. Let's go. Hole 6, 108 meters, kind of a forehand slight flex line. And here I'm just gonna make the fairway as big as possible by bringing the disc from right to left and then fading and coming back at the end. The gap becomes really narrow if you just try to throw it straight and then fade. So I'm just making the fairway as big as possible. Probably pin high, but I should have gone a bit more overstable, but it's decent. I hit the gap. Just inside the circle here. Let's give it a bid. Oh, that's a bad putt. Consistent though. Hole 7, 126 meter par 3. Quite a tricky line actually. Most people would go up to this hole and think, oh, it's fading left, I'll throw something overstable. But you don't actually want to fade left, you want to glide left. So again, understable discs are your friend. Throw it out on a steep hyzer, let it flip up to almost flat, but still keep pushing towards the left side, because that way it's gonna glide left instead of dumping down to the left. So here we're going with the Hades again, just like that. Could have been a bit too straight, but I think I'm at least inside C2 and have a chance for the birdie. And this one is really tricky, so happy with the putt here. All right, it was a little bit too straight, which made me go a little bit deep. But I'm still inside the circle and have a birdie putt. And a birdie on this hole is really good, so very nice. Hole 8, 118 meter par 3, really straight. But if you go in this straight gap, the angle is really difficult. So it's actually easier to go with the outside gap, turn it into the fairway and then kind of come back at the end. So it's more of a flex line if you go over here on the left side, which is what I'm doing. Going with my more overstable shrike. Throw it straight towards the big tree on the left side and let it turn on the right side of it. A little bit too overstable of a disc, but I hit the gap perfect. I wanted to turn it a little bit more into the fairway, but I hit the gap, so I'm happy. It's okay. Almost pin high though, and I have a little bit of a gap here, so let's try to make this one. No, I can't push the height. Okay, I could. Really small gap here though. Hole 9, 213 meter par 5, really weird angles. First shot you just want to go straight, and by the two birches up in the middle you kind of want to fade out to the left side, because that way you're gonna have a easier hyzer around the corner afterwards. But same thing again, you want to go straight. What do? You take an understable disc, throw it on hyzer, flip up to flat. Might be a little bit too far to the left side, but I kind of did what I wanted, but I just early released it a little bit. That's perfection. I actually went a little bit too far here, but I'm going with the essence around the corner. Throw it high, try to get it push left. Yeah, it's decent. Should have a approach from there. And another tip here on the approach. I have quite a big gap, but I have some branches and stuff hanging out in the way, and that's gonna make it harder to hit. So it's kind of what I was talking about before. If you have a tree that's close to you on the left side, and the one that makes the right side of the gap further away, that means if you come out from the right side, the gap is gonna be bigger. But if you go from the left side, it's gonna get smaller. So to make the gap as easy as possible to hit, throw a little bit of a flex line into it, because that makes the gap a lot bigger. So here I'm going with the zone and throw it on a bit of an Annie and then get it to come back at the end. Okay, it's not an overstable zone. I just put that zone down in the bag. Let's do it with the pyro instead. But that's what I mean. You see how much easier it is to hit the gap if I'm coming in from the right side and then going into the gap instead of throwing it straight at it. I hit the gap and I got up here. I didn't fade and park it, but I'm still up here and I have a birdie putt, which is better than missing the gap. Easy birdie. All right, hole 10 here, 230 meter par 5 again. And this one is really tight the entire way. So the landing zones are actually very specific. And on a hole like this, people will come up here and see just a really long and straight fairway. And they will be like, oh, I can throw a distance driver and just try to get it as far as possible down there. But the problem with that is that distance drivers and fairway drivers have a lot more fade than slower discs. So if you're gonna throw a driver into this gap, even if you hit it perfectly straight, you're still gonna fade out on the left side and land in the rough. But if you take a slower disc, like a putter or a mid-range, and like I said, understable discs are your friend again if you want to go straight. So a understable mid-range, that's what I'm gonna do. Throw it on a hyzer, flip up to flat, and just push it through the gap. Then you're not gonna get as much fade as if you would throw a driver. So that way you can keep it in the fairway much easier. And that's why I'm going with the midnight prowl. And 230 meters is not really a long par 5, so you don't really need that much distance. Come back. Might actually have flipped up a little bit too much, but as you see, I don't get the fade into the woods, it just keeps straight. A lot easier to keep it in the fairway that way. And tip number 8, know your landing zones. If you don't know where you're going, walk up and look where you want to place the disc. Then make your decision from there. Going overstable mid here, just throw it straight into the gap and let the disc do the work, fade back to the left. And that is my method. Haha. That should be perfect. And that's why you walk up and check your landing zones. Pretty straightforward approach here, but like I've been talking about, make the gaps as big as possible and play towards your percentages. I could go straight for the basket, but that gap is really tough, which means if I miss it, I'm probably kicking straight out and I don't have a birdie putt. But if I go with a forehand flex out towards the left side and then try to come back, I'm always gonna have a putt, because that way I'm making the gap as big as possible and I'm basically bringing bogey out of play. So overstable FD3, lots of Annie, then come back at the end. And one more quick tip, know your distances. Use one of these, very good. 66 meters, and I thought it was like 80, so that's good. Totally missed my gap, because I threw it with nose up, but I'm still up there and I'm gonna have a putt. That was very sloppy. Let's do one more. With the instinct from the girlfriend builds my bag challenge, which is surprisingly overstable for being an instinct. That is parked. Oh my god. It's in. It's okay. It's a birdie. Varnas. Hole 11, 77 meter par 3. Tight gap at the end, and then you want to fade right. So basically a forehand. And same thing here. You don't have to park it. Just get it through the gap and you have a putt. So let's go with the instinct again. Just throw it straight into the gap and let it fade, and I should have a putt. Oh, tappar den. It slipped out of my hand. It happens. Let's go to FD3 instead. That's what I wanted to do. And that is parked. Unfortunate. And one more tip with these kind of gaps. This one is pretty straight, so it's not bigger if I go in from one side or another. But if you're still overthinking hitting it in the middle of the gap, to make it easier, aim for one of the trees that makes the gap and then try to turn it away from that tree instead. So instead of just trying to throw it in the middle of those trees, throw it towards the left tree and turn it in front of it. That way you have a smaller aiming point and you're probably not gonna miss by much. So that makes it easier. So here I'm going Luna, trying to throw it towards the left tree that makes the gap and turn it in front of that one, which makes the gap really big. And I almost aced it. But that's another trick to make a gap easier to hit. Decent. FD3 parked. Luna parked. But I still get a par. Sloppy, but it happens. Hole 12, par 4, 190 meter dog leg left. And here I'm gonna give you guys a tip that is not gonna make sense at first, but it's gonna make sense when I explain it. When you approach a shot like this, kind of a basic straight to hyzer shot for most people. But this par 4 is pretty long, which means you want your first shot to be as far left as possible. And if you want a disc to go as far left as possible, you don't actually throw an overstable disc. You throw an understable disc on a hyzer flip that glides left. That way it's gonna go much further towards the left after you go around the corner. And it's the same way if you want to go the other way. If you want a disc to turn as far right as possible, you don't throw an understable disc and turn it around the corner. You throw an overstable disc on a steep anhyzer and let it pan out the entire way. That way it goes much further towards that side. So here we throw an understable disc, flip it up around the corner and push left. We're going with the Hades. You see how much further left that went than if I would have thrown an overstable disc and just faded around the corner. So that's another trick for you. And then again, I'm gonna make the fairway as big as possible by throwing the essence towards the left side, but letting it turn into the fairway. Go in. Okay, it's a good shot. Okay, it might have actually been a mid-range play over there because it was pretty downhill. Still a look for the birdie. Tip number 538. Look for branches in the way, because I didn't see that one. But it doesn't matter when you can't putt. Still an easy par though. Pretty difficult hole, so it's okay. Alright, hole 13, 126 meter par 3 downhill. And here's the same thing again. It's a pushing hyzer the entire way. It's not a straight to hyzer fade. So what you want to do here is you want to throw an understable disc again. Hyzer, flip it up and glide left the entire way. No way. That looked so good. But I hit some tree. I don't even know where it was. Unfortunate kick here, but I think we can save a par. I don't know, Barry or Sohm. Which one? Barry. Oh no. I pulled it. I should have gone Sohm. To make the gap bigger. I didn't follow my own instructions. I've been here before. It's impossible from over here. I could try to throw this in here. But tip number 5642, eat your medicine. Know when to lay up. That's not even a good layup. For the bogey. Hole 14, 141 meter par 3, uphill as well. And the tip for this hole is, if you know you can't reach it, play it in 2 shots instead. So here I'm gonna go with a understable fairway driver and just turn it around the corner and then have a approach from there. Because I don't think I can reach this one. So here I'm going with the essence, just throw it into the gap and turn it around the corner. Oh no, I didn't go around the corner, but it's in the middle though. Hopefully we have something from there. Hopefully we can save this par. No, that faded way too much. That's a tester. A little bit outside the circle here for a par. Very sloppy approach. It's a good thing I can make my jump putts though. Hole 15, 88 meter par 3. The basket is basically behind here, so it's a very left to right kind of shot. And that would make people mostly throw a forehand, but it doesn't really set up for that because the hill and the bushy tree right there comes into play if you throw a forehand. But if you throw a backhand turnover, you can actually follow the fairway a lot better. So I'm going flippy fairway here. Go in. That was close. Perfect line. Went a little bit deep again, but still inside the circle and have a birdie putt. I think this was really close to going in actually. Oh my god, get up. Thank you. Such a wobbly, weird putt. I'm so tired. I'm out of water. It's really hot. And I'm still sick. Hole 16, 101 meter par 3. And if you look at it straight ahead, then it's really tight. But like I said, make the gap bigger by coming from right to left into the gap. So here we're doing a forehand flex. A little bit too overstable. But I think it's a putt. It's a decent shot. Another jump putt here. Let's get 2 in a row. Come on. No. Just faded out. Should have put a little bit more Annie on it and trusted the overstability. Threw it a bit low as well. So. Hole 17, 71 meter par 3, very straightforward. Basket right there. When you initially see this fairway, you think it's completely straight. But if you actually look at how the trees are moving throughout the fairway, you can see it's kind of a left to right, then coming back left shot. So if you want to make the gap as big as possible, you can throw just a little bit of flex on your shot. But I'm not actually gonna do that here. I'm just gonna go for the ace straight on. Well, it's not an ace, it's actually a tester. I went way too far. This suddenly became unnecessarily tricky. But we made it, so it's okay. Hole 18, 90 meters. Either a forehand around the corner or a late flip backhand. Last hole means last tip. What I see a lot of people doing wrong when they are aiming is that they line up their body and then they aim where they want to release the disc. So if I would throw it here, I would release it over here, or I would go over here to go more to the right. That's wrong. You don't aim with how you release the disc. You aim with how you set up your body. So if I want to go straight here, I want to end up right here so that my body naturally moves towards the middle of the fairway. I don't set up over here and then decide how I'm going to release the disc. So that's the last tip. Aim with your body, not with how you release the disc. And here we're going with the essence again, kind of straight towards the left side and then let it drift right the entire way. Let's go for an ace. I can't even see the basket, but let's give it some power. Oh, I pulled it. I'm so tired. I think we landed kind of open, so I think we can save the par. But I'm so tired and dehydrated. Let's go for a little cheeky throw in with the Barry here and end it on a good note. Nope, way too high. That's so far out that it's actually a tester for the par. Alright, for the par and a decent -6 round. A bit high, but it's in. So I didn't play amazing, but the most important part, we stayed out of trouble. I think we only got 1 bogey and 7 birdies. So we stayed out of trouble by following these tips and tricks. And so can you. Also check out bouncebackdiscgolf.com. 100% the best disc golf towel in the game with all these embroidered stamps and logos and funny quotes. They are amazing. Use the code KKDD for 15% off. Link right there. Alright, that's it for this time. Remember to
like, subscribe and comment down below what you want to see next.
Exactly. I'll see you guys in the next one.